appreciate you all coming here today and taking the time to hear what I have to say. I'm hoping to provide you a little bit of new information, kind of a twist that maybe you haven't heard before. Who here has school-age children under the age of 17? So you may find this applicable. It's a lot of common sense stuff, but it's something that we have been ingrained in stranger danger for so long. It's hard to even get our officers to come off of stranger danger. I've been in law enforcement since 1989. My name is Don Eggleston. I am the Patrol Division Captain for the City of Waverly. I've been with Waverly since 1994, and when I got promoted in 2007, part of my job as the Patrol Division Commander was to reach out and do public awareness speeches, presentations, and one thing I came up with was a program I call Lunch with the Law. And I wanted to get our officers into the schools more. I saw a very big vacancy all throughout my tenure here at Waverly. I didn't see the interaction that I would have liked to see personally with our school-age children. So what I did with Lunch with the Law is, with the Chief's blessing of course, is I assigned officers from first shift to each one of our elementary schools. My purpose was, one, to get the officers in there in front of the children and to build a rapport with them. So by doing this, I assign the officers permanently. So as long as they're on first shift, they stay with an individual school. I have been with Carey School Elementary since I got promoted in 2007. So when those kids come in as kindergartners, they know Captain Eggleston from the first year they're there until their last year at 4th grade. Because I'm always going to be on first shift. That's my assigned position. Now we do have some fluctuation with shift bids with our first shift officers, so sometimes those officers change, but a lot of our officers right now are reaching a seniority level that they're going to be on first shift for quite a while. So these kids, if I go to football games, if I go to Walmart, I mean, it's, hey, Captain Eggleston, you know, they know me, and I have a rapport with those kids. And the same goes with Officer Kroll or Officer Wagner, depending on which elementary school they go to. So that's one of the other focuses, is to build that relationship with our kids, get them used to law enforcement so we're not intimidating, we're not scary to them, and of course that they can approach us then and feel very comfortable with us. Another thing is to provide those safety messages, to teach kids how to be safer in certain scenarios. So we do things like bicycle safety, we do things like Halloween safety, E911, how to operate phones. We do a various amount of programs, and then I produce basically the outline so that those officers were all delivering the same message. Okay? So when I started making these outlines for these individual safety messages, one of the things I came back to was stranger danger. You guys probably all remember that in elementary school. Okay, McGruff the crime dog, stranger danger. A short Google image search produces something like this. There is a plethora of stranger danger placards, pictures, information on the internet. But in my opinion, stranger danger produces somewhat of a twisted message to kids. Okay? Not all strangers are dangerous. Sometimes your children, if they get lost or disconnected with parents or the adults that they're with, are going to have to approach strangers. They're going to need help from a stranger at some point in their life, most likely. If we plague them with fear of strangers overall, how are they going to interact with that? Okay? So we need to find a better way. You'll see here in the statistics that 7 out of 10 kids to this day during studies will still walk away with a stranger, because the strangers know how to get the confidence of the child, basically overcome that fear of a stranger. So we need to teach them survival skills, not just stranger danger. I'm going to share some statistics with you guys, and then I'm going to tell you what it is that we're pushing forward in the elementary schools as law enforcement. Now, when we meet with the kids in these elementary schools, some of our schools are 2-section classes, so there's 2 kindergartners, 2 first grade classes. I meet with both kindergarten classes once a month, so I'm in the school twice a month minimum. Okay? Same goes with first grade, second grade. The officers that are assigned to schools with 1-section classes, they meet with the one class twice a month. So they'll actually get to speak to the same group twice a month. So it's not a lot of time. If we're putting out these a multitude of safety messages, just me going in there to one class and speaking about stranger danger, or what I call it, once in a year, it's not going to stick. So if we don't have reinforcement from parents on how to deliver this message, and if it's not echoing the same thing that law enforcement is pushing forward, again, we're going to confuse our children. So we need to try to make sure we're all on the same page, and hopefully that's what you're going to leave with today, is just a little bit more direction on what we suggest you do as parents to talk to your children and help them to be safer. Okay? So statistics. Of all the children under age 5 murdered in the U.S. in 30 years, this is a 30-year homicide rate study for children 5 years and under. Okay, these facts and these figures are probably going to shock you a little bit. There is a heightened awareness today, especially with what took place in Evansdale, of having our kids kidnapped or murdered, and there's this underlying fear. But nationally, all of our trends are going down with criminal activity, including homicide rates for kids, abduction rates for kids, kidnapping rates for kids. But because it hit locally, and we're still getting reports of attempted abductions here and there, man, as a parent, that's something that it's really important to us, and we're thinking, geez, what do we do? What's going on? It's not increasing. It's just with social media and some of the attention that we've gotten locally, we're really like almost psycho-aware of abductions and kidnappings. So 31% of those murdered children were killed by their fathers. 29% killed by their moms. 23% killed by male acquaintances. 7% by other relatives. You guys getting the gist? Should we be teaching kids stranger danger? Or should we be teaching them ways to protect themselves with anybody? Okay? Chances are, if you deal with a child being abused or killed or kidnapped, it's going to be from somebody they know. I'm here to tell you, I just delivered this message to second grade class in elementary yesterday. This is a hard conversation to have with kids. Because when you have to sit down and tell them, and I share this information with them. I try to not be as detailed with the younger classes, but when I get up to 3rd and 4th grade, I'm being pretty blunt with them as far as the statistics and what they need to look for. But when you have to sit there and tell those children, more than likely, if you get into this situation, it's going to be from somebody you love and trust. That's hard. And you can see the blank looks on their faces like, what? Because that's kind of a new concept to them. How do we sit down and tell our children, most likely if something bad happens to you, it's going to be from somebody you already know. So that's why we have to talk to our children, and we have to get on the same page and let them know, what to expect. So abductions in perspective, like I said, with Elizabeth and Lyric in Evansdale, this thing is very fresh in everybody's mind, right? Abductions, we get probably more concerned parent calls and contacts about kidnapping, abductions, and my child was approached by somebody suspicious. That's a big thing. And it should be an important issue, right? With crime and with law enforcement, this is something that we should take great notice on. So we got 74.2 million children in the United States. Here's, according to the CDC, Center for Disease Control, about 9,080 is your average annual mortality rate for kids up to 14 years old. 1,300 car accidents annually, about. Killed each year by family members, 1,000. Number of children abducted in your stereotypical, your absolute stranger danger situation that we talk about. The kidnapping, the coercing into the car, whether that's for slave labor, whether it's for sexual assault, whether it's for homicide, whatever. We're getting about 100 a year in the United States out of 74 plus million children. Not a high percentage. Not at all. About 50%, according to the missing persons bureaus and those organizations, about 50% are returned home safely. Now, there may be some other abuse issues that occurred during that kidnapping phase, but we're only looking at about 50 homicides a year throughout the U.S. with 74 million children with your traditional kidnapping and abduction. So the worry that we have as parents You know, when we start prioritizing how we're teaching our children and what we're teaching them, is really stranger danger and that whole abduction scare, that is so far down on the list, that is not something we need to be concentrating on. We need to be concentrating on how the children react to adults. And when I say adults, and with this presentation, I also include later adolescent, 15, 16, 17-year-olds. I didn't want to deluge you guys with statistics today, but there's a lot of some of the statistics with sexual assault are occurring from your older males and females that are late teenage as well. Again, these are people that the children are most likely going to know. Okay, so stranger danger. Gosh, there's so much impact on it. I've been doing this presentation to the schools now for 8 years, right? I still get it's the same teachers too, and they still ask me, what do you call that now, that stranger danger thing? I know it's not stranger danger, but what is it? It's adult safety. That's what we talk about. Getting our kids to try and concentrate on how to read adults and how to react to adults. Okay? So we're talking about half of 1% in the murders in America are for children. Again, here's that figure that I gave you guys. 7 in 10 children are still going to walk away with strangers. They just are. We need to learn to empower our kids and teach them how to react to adults and how to feel comfortable saying no to adults. Okay? This is not something that we should forget about, because the abductions with strangers, we've literally had thousands of them thwarted because kids have been taught correctly, have run away, have reported them. So it's something we still need to talk about, but we need to talk about it differently. So why should we stop teaching stranger danger, and why should we start teaching what to do instead? Because that stranger danger is so ingrained into everybody's heads. What do your kids see when you go out into public? Okay? They see you talking to strangers in the store, right? They see you talking to strangers in the mall. When they meet their bus driver for the first time, is that not a stranger? We interact as parents and adults with strangers all the time. You can give a whole list of strangers that your kids watch you interact with daily, but yet you tell them, stranger danger, stay away from strangers. Well, I see you talking to strangers all the time, Mom and Dad. Why can't I? But we want them to be polite, right? We want them to greet people that maybe they don't know that we assess as a nice person. So we're kind of, it's very hard for our kids, especially our younger kids, to grasp this whole stranger danger thing when they see the exact opposite out in the public. Policemen, firemen, EMTs, doctors. When I have these conversations with the kids at the elementary schools, this is what I talk about. Before you met me, was I dangerous to you? No. How come? Because you're a policeman. They know the answers to this stuff. These kids, they can grasp this stuff very fast. So the kids that I talked to previously, in the previous years, which was my class yesterday, they're like, oh, you're going to talk to us about adult safety. We remember that. And I said, okay, so what else do you remember? Crickets. Because it's that one visit every year, and they know that I talk to them about, they still call it stranger danger, but they know the differences. And when I start rolling with them and talking about the same things over and over again, it starts coming back. But like I said, if this is not reinforced at the home level from parents, then it's going to be hard for them to continue to grasp that. So we've got to teach that it's not only okay to talk to strangers, but it's necessary sometimes. If your kids ever get lost and they have been plagued with the stranger danger concept their entire life, that's all you talk to them about, they are going to be absolutely frightened, and they won't be able to do anything. Because they know, because Mom and Dad have told me, I don't talk to strangers, but now I'm lost. Where do I go? So I joke with the kids and I tell them, you curl up in a little ball and start sucking your thumb, screaming, Mommy, 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 and they all kind of giggle and laugh. They get into the presentation, but they're like, no, no, and I'm like, so what do? They actually remembered it. You go to the store clerk. You start giving them alternatives and role-playing with them and telling them what you want them to do. You teach them how to gauge safe adults from adults that may not be the best option. Not saying that they're unsafe, but you're going to have those conversations. Teach them it's not it's not okay to accept gifts from people without parents' permission. It's not okay to accept cash. It's not okay for people to take photos of you without our permission. And if you see that, if you see these things, you need to share that with us. They should absolutely know and understand without any doubt in their mind that when they bring something to mom and dad, that it's going to be believed and accepted. Okay? If you brush that stuff off that they're telling you, it's going to take 1 or 2 times, and they're not going to trust you anymore. They have to understand that they got to come and bring that stuff to mom and dad. They got to talk to mom and dad. Tell us these things so that we can address it. Okay? Obviously, not getting into the cars, go inside with homes. I do role playing, so I'll lean back in my car, and I'll be like, "Hey, Captain Eggleston's wearing regular street clothes, and I got $10. You want to get inside for a ride?" And they're like, "No, I said, "What kind of feeling does that give you?" So we talk about feelings that it's producing inside their body that they should trust. Feeling. Okay? We are born with an intrinsic feeling that tells us when trouble occurs. Okay? Personally, I think this guy's doing something in his diaper, but this is the feeling. So how do I explain that, and how do I get them to grasp that? Who's ever broke something in your house? And they're like, "Oh, yeah, I have." And I said, "How did that feel?" "Gosh, Mom and Dad are going to be so mad." And they're like, "Yeah." And I said, "You know how that feels in your tummy and it just starts hurting?" And they're like, "Yes, we know, yes." Okay, they know the feeling. Okay? They know what this is. So we have to start teaching them to trust that gut instinct. If you see someone really weird that's hanging out at the park, or that's watching or paying, a lot of attention to you out in public. Now, kids, most of the time, they're just going to play, and all of a sudden, they might kind of do the, "Okay, what's that guy?" And then they're back to playing. It's squirrel. They've got a very short attention span. But some kids will pick up on it, and you got to teach them to trust that. I'll show them pictures like this, and I'll ask them, "What's going on with this guy?" "He's not happy." I said, "Can you see the emotion in his eyes that something very bad has happened?" And they're like, "Yeah." I said, "Is that an feeling?" "Yes." Okay, so you guys know what the feeling is, right? Yes, we understand that. So you have to teach them or get them to get a hold of that and then apply it to situations that you may run into. Okay? This is the opposite of I say, when Mom and Dad grab you and they pull you up and they start smooching you all over the face and they tickle you and they really get into it with you and they're like, "Oh, yeah, no." They act like they hate it. And I'm like, "You guys love it, don't you?" And they're like, "Yeah, we like it." So they know the opposite, right? They know what love should feel like. So then we start talking about, does Captain Eggleston in uniform have the right to give you the feeling? No. But I'm a cop. I can do anything I want, right? No. I can't give you the feeling or do something to you that's going to give you the feeling. No. So what are you going to tell me? You going to resist me? Are you going to tell me no? And they're like, they don't know how to answer that because they don't know how to react. I'm supposed to respect my elders. I'm supposed to respect law enforcement. You have to empower your children to say no to adults. Okay, you have to. It's not something that we teach regularly as parents. I think back with my children and, telling them they have the authority or the power to say no to somebody as an adult figure, that's hard for them to grasp because they have been under your supervision of adults, respect our elders, all the traditional statements that we made about this. They need to know that they can say no, okay, even at a young age. So we have to start doing scenario-based training, and we have to think about what situations entitle you to say no to an adult. Good touch, bad touch. We talk about that. I said, so if Captain Eggleston starts touching you in places that give you the feeling or that make you feel icky, that's the word I use. Because it does. It makes them feel icky. It takes away their value, their self-worth. It frightens them. It makes them anxious. Those are the feelings you want to concentrate on, the good touch, bad touch. I showed you what the good touch was. It leaves you feeling all smiley and giggly and it's fun. But then you have to take that one step further and say, so if Grandpa Jim, and I just throw out names randomly, touches you in a way that makes you feel icky or gives you the uh-oh feeling, what do? And it's like a blank stare on their faces. Because now it's hitting them, Grandpa wouldn't do that to me. But you know what? Statistically, it is Grandpa, or it's Grandma, or it's Mom, or it's Dad. Especially in divorced and separated households. That's where you're going to see this kind of thing. It's Uncle Jim. It's Aunt Kim. It's my cousin. You know, fill in the blank. You guys saw it. 97% is going to occur from somebody they know. Who has had that conversation with their child saying they have the right to say no to one of your loved ones if they give you icky feelings? I'm here to tell you, probably not very many, because that is a hard conversation to have with people, with kids, because it almost takes that innocence away. Okay? But the way that we direct it in elementary schools is we say, you know what? Most likely, this ain't ever going to happen to you. But just like tornado drills, just like fire drills, we want to empower you and give you this knowledge, because things are a lot less scary if you have the knowledge, right? And they're like, yeah. You know, and we do the fire drill and tornado drill how many times? When was the last time you saw a tornado destroy a school or a fire destroy a school in the U.S.? It rarely ever happens. But I can point you to a whole lot of sexual assaults and things like that that have occurred inside the school buildings, because kids trust teachers, they trust firemen, they trust law enforcement, they trust Cub Scout people. I can't remember what their names are, the den mothers and the den fathers or whatever they are. Okay? That's the people that they trust. We have to empower them with knowledge that it's probably going to occur from somebody you know. So how do we react to it? You know, we have to tell them how to say no. Trust your gut. They know. They know if something's going to make them feel really rotten or if it's going bad. So empower your kids. Tell them, trust your gut. And if you don't like that situation, you absolutely have the right to say, no, you're giving me the uh-oh feeling. Whatever. Get some verbiage to talk to them, to use, and give them the power to come away from that situation, even if it's Grandpa, even if it's Uncle Jim, even if it's Aunt Kim. And you come right away and you tell Mom and Dad. Okay? Get the communication down. They got to tell you. They've got to feel that they're safe to tell you what has happened. Because if they don't, they're just going to bottle it up, and it's going to destroy them inside. Surprises and secrets. This is a conversation you have to have. This is the one thing that the bad guy or the bad girl is going to be sure to beat into their head. Don't tell Mom and Dad, this is our little secret. Teach your kids that surprises are great. Hey, we're going to throw Mom a surprise party tomorrow night. Everybody's going to be in on it, but you can't tell Mom, right? It's a surprise. But if anybody says, hey, keep this a secret, and especially if they tell you to keep it a secret from Mom and Dad, you come and tell Mom and Dad immediately. And that's what I tell them. Do I have the right to tell you to keep a secret from your mother and father? Nope. I said, I don't have that right as an officer? Nope. Okay. Does Miss Neff, does she have the right to keep a secret from Mom and Dad? No. How come? I can tell Mom and Dad everything. Right. Yes, you can. Mom and Dad knows everything in your life. You can tell me anything. And I want you to tell me everything. I want you to tell me especially anything that gives you an uh-oh feeling. If it makes you feel icky inside, that's what I want to hear from you. You come tell me that, because I'll help you take care of it. They got to know that that trust is there. Role-playing exercises, I given you guys a few examples of that. Just talk with them. It doesn't have to be these long, drawn-out sessions. You know, what if you're at the playground and somebody rolls up and says, hey, your mom's in the hospital. I need to take you there. Well, I don't know you. That's okay. She gave me permission. It's okay. You know, they're going to do everything they can to lure them. Do you know the number one tactic right now that still works over 70% of the time for kids is animals. Stinking animals. Man, you show them a fluffy cat or a dog or a puppy, they're done, right? You got to explain that to them, okay? These guys and girls are professionals. And I should say girls more often because 68% of abductions involve a female. Successful abductions. 68%. Okay? So we used to talk about going to a woman rather than a man, but we know that's no longer true in law enforcement. So now what we tell them to concentrate is if you're lost or you're seeking help and there's not a trusted adult, teacher, grandma, grandpa, somebody that mom and dad has identified as a trusted adult, go to a female with children. That's what we're telling them. Females with children around them are much less likely to engage in criminal activity with their children. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying the odds are, if they're stuck at Mall of America and they're lost and they can't find a store clerk or something like that, go with somebody that has children and seek assistance from them. And we talked about this. You know, I said, using the store clerk for example, I said, if you go to a store clerk, do you honestly believe that they're going to say, hold on, boss, I got to go kidnap this chick? All right, and they're going to run over there and kidnap you. And they're like, oh, they start laughing and carrying on. Those are the kind of role plays you need to teach them. And then they understand that. They're like, well, yeah, they're working. They ain't going to do anything bad to me while they're working. Now, does that preclude the fact that an employee might try to lure somebody into a dressing room or something like that? Those are other options and conversations that you may have to have eventually. But we have to communicate with the kids. We have to talk about these role-playing situations so that they know how to respond to it. And you have to be a broken record because squirrel, right? It's not going to stick unless you repeat yourself over and over and over again. So you have to have those conversations. Teach them how to use your cell phone. If they don't already know, teach them. If you've got password protection where they can't get in touch with 911, most of them now you don't have to use a password for 911, but let them know how to contact and how to use that phone. Give them trusted adult phone numbers. So mom, dad, aunts, uncles, whatever the case, maybe a neighbor across the street that you fully believe in, that they would be a trusted adult. Share those numbers with the kids or show them how to get those numbers. Usually we tell people to put just a list of names of trusted adults on the refrigerator or something like that. You know, do that so they know. They have to be empowered, have the ability to do it. Tell the kids who trusted adults are. Teach them to yell, call 911, no, get away from me. And this is the conversation I had with them yesterday, because one of the boys said, well, what if I scream really, really loud and it's really shrill and it hurts their ears and blows their eardrums out? I'm like, wow. I said, that's pretty impressive that you could yell that loud. I said, but you know what? I drive by here and that's all I hear from the playground is this loud screeching, screaming, and I keep driving thinking, all right, kids are having fun. I said, but if I drove by and I heard, no, get away from me, call 911, I'd be like, whoa, what is that? That's going to catch my attention. So if someone is attempting an abduction or trying to drag the kids away from where they're at against their will, teach them to start yelling in a lower voice if they can. But just to make it loud, and not just to scream, but to make statements. No, get away from me. Call 911. And we teach them, if they don't have a weapon or haven't shown you a weapon, you kick, you bite, you do everything you can to get away from them and make as big of a ruckus as you can. Because what you're doing is you're making everybody witnesses around that area. So if they're successful at getting the child, then we're going to have a whole lot of witnesses, hopefully, that we can canvass that area and we can get great vehicle descriptions, we can get great person descriptions. Don't go quietly unless they show you a weapon. I said, if they've got a gun, if they've got a knife, you do what you're told. Then you give us the opportunity. I don't tell them that with most homicides, with abductions and kidnappings, they're dead within 3 hours. 3 hours is what we have to work with on national statistic levels. So these kids have got to understand that if they're going to get kidnapped, if they actually get pulled into a vehicle, they need to make as much noise as possible unless there's a weapon involved. Because we need witnesses. We're going to have to put that information out. We're going to have to locate them within that 3-hour window. Because if we don't, the likelihood that they're dead already is very, very high.
So I had heard once, even with a weapon, make a noise because they're less likely to shoot you in a parking lot than alone on a gravel road. So is that not true then?
The way that I look at it and the information that I've seen, if they're bringing a weapon out into that situation and displaying it so those children see it, most likely there's a chance, a high probability that they're going to use it.
Even there.
Even there. Questions? Crickets. Is this different than what you've heard previously, as far as how to react with stranger danger situations? I'm here to tell you, it is so far ingrained into our psyche, this stranger danger thing. It is hard to get people to pull away from it. My officers, been working on them for years. What's that called again? I mean, it takes that long to pull away from stranger danger theology. It just does, because we've seen it since the 70s. It has been rampant. And it has a good message to a point, but we have to teach them differently. It's not just strangers. Most likely, it is not going to be a stranger that does something to harm you or hurt you. And we have to prepare them for that. We do. The biggest thing that I think this is applicable to is sexual assault. Almost 100% of our sexual assaults are not coming from strangers. The ones that we're investigating in this community, they know who the offender is. Whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, you name it. There's no stereotypical pedophile. There's just not. It goes across all gender lines, race lines, economic lines. It doesn't matter. They're everywhere. And we know statistically it's probably going to happen from somebody that they know. So if they're not prepared to deal with it, if they haven't had it discussed with them, they won't know how to react. And they may think that they're to blame. And most of the pedophiles are going to tell them, this is your fault. Or I'm going to hurt mom and dad if you tell them. You need to debunk that lie before they get a hold of it. I read during some of this research that they had this huge 10-year study of pedophiles that were in prison and talked to them about how they groom their victims and how they talk to their victims. And the one thing that rings in my mind, the one pedophile said, if you show me a child whose parents don't talk to them about sex, I'm going to show you my next victim. And what he is saying is that we don't communicate as parents with our kids, and if we don't educate them first, that leaves the door open for them to educate them and groom them so that they can become a victim. So it's up to us as parents.
So you work with school-age kids. I've got a nearly 3-year-old. Is that too soon?
3-year-olds young.
Yeah.
They're just getting basic communication skills and everything like that. But you can start building that loving trust and talk about good touch, bad touch. Because it unfortunately does happen at that age. So using as gentle terms as you can, that's a conversation you need to start as soon as they're able to communicate. Teach them that the doctor, when we went to our doctors the first time, we talked to them about how they're going to be touching them and how it might be a little uncomfortable. It's okay because it's a doctor and we're going to be there with you. And that's okay for the doctor to touch you like this. And, he has to do the job to make sure that you're okay. But if anybody else touches you like that, no, that's not okay. You need to tell us about that. Those are the conversations you have to have at 3 years old. It's unfortunate. I mean, you can see it in all you guys' eyes, like, why do we have to have these conversations? But we do, because if we don't, somebody else will, and it won't go well. And if we don't empower our kids, it's going to result in bad things.
Do you have any stats, like, for the area on sexual assaults and stuff?
I don't have local staff. We do statistics for the PD on just a sexual assault basis. But unfortunately, being in a college town, that's where we're going to see most of our figures. And I can just tell you that we have an investigator in our office that is very sick and tired of doing sexual assault cases at the college level and at the child level. It's more rampant than you probably think it is.
Is this info on your website?
This information?
Well, just like basic,
PowerPoint.
kind of what you talked about.
We have a very limited website. when we switched directors, everybody has their own concept on websites. And we were getting a great base and links and everything, and then all of a sudden it just got, let's all redo it. And it kind of made it tough, so. Comments or suggestions? Thanks, guys.
Do you address, I don't know what actually happened like in the high school or junior high level? Is it too late by that point to be talking about this?
No, absolutely not. We do the active shooter scenario training and Alice training with our high school kids too, in some of the classes. So we do it with the instructors, and then we have the volunteers come in so that we can have the student element as well. But, you know, the only things that change is the amount of information that you can give them, and you can speak much more candidly to your older kids and let them know that these kind of things are going on. But, you know, you don't want to heap all of that kind of filth onto young children. You have to kind of grow with it. And it's not something, unfortunately, that we visit one day and talk about it one day and then never revisit it. This should be continuous and expanding all the way through their childhood, because we have to keep talking to them about that, because they're changing. You know, they're seeing different things as they grow up. So we have to continue that communication with them all through their lives.
And those kids are getting lured through this.
Yes, that's what I said. If you don't teach them, they're going to learn. They just are. You know, I'm not fool. I know my kids are on that phone, and you know they got access to websites, and
people friend them and want to then meet them, and
yeah. I had to send Salvation Army funding out to Ohio one time because a young lady that had just turned 18, she met a man online, and she went out there, and he used her, and she didn't have anything to get back with. The parents were not very wealthy at all, and they came to me saying, please help us get her child back. She doesn't have any money. She's hooked up with this guy. So I sent money out. We got a bus back, and we got her returned to Iowa. But, you know, 18 years old. You guys know how easy it is for people to be imposters online. And especially when you're dealing with young feelings and love. You know, people are twisted, and they get good at it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
you.
Thanks, guys.